Radio Now 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.
Hello, I'm Emily Metheny, your host. This week I had the opportunity to talk with John Elliott, CEO of Gleaners. He talked about how the pandemic has impacted Gleaners and how you can help support those in need. So, John, can you tell me a little bit about the areas that Gleaners serves here in Indiana?
Well, each of the 200 member food banks in the Feeding America network share a common mission of feeding our hungry neighbors, but the way we do so varies a bit. So Gleaners is first and foremost a regional food bank responsible for feeding our hungry neighbors in 21 Indiana counties. That's central Indiana and then east and southeast Indiana. But we also have 3 additional roles that happen essentially under the same roof. We're a natural disaster response food bank, one of about a dozen in the Feeding America network, which means we house some FEMA inventory and do some other things for the network. We also have a contract with Kroger to handle their reclamation or their surplus food and non-food for the Indiana and Illinois stores for Kroger. And then the fourth role, which has been very fortuitous as we respond to this COVID-19 pandemic, we operate a regional perishable food co-op that at its start was all produce, but we're adding a bit more protein and dairy through that regional co-op. And that role is really to act as a gatherer of surplus food at farms and food producers across the country in full semi-loads, and then send mixed loads out to food banks, sister food banks across 9 Midwest states. So as you can imagine, to have this diversity of food sourcing at a time the COVID-19 pandemic has really disrupted the food supply chain has put Gleaners in, frankly, a stronger position to respond and take care of our neighbors than most food banks or a lot of nonprofits. So we had no idea when we launched some of these additional initiatives, but it's helping us now.
How many people have you been able to serve during the COVID-19 pandemic so far?
So let me take just a second and explain that pre-pandemic, we were distributing food through 4 primary channels. The first is brick-and-mortar food pantries across all 21 counties, and there are about 250 of those partner organizations. About 10% or a bit more of those have closed as a result of the pandemic, and frankly, in many parts of the country, it's ranging as high as 90% or greater closed. So in Gleaner service area and with our partners, we fared better than in many places in terms of the neighborhood pantries staying open with modified processes that are the right blend of serving clients and medical safety. The second channel is school-based pantries, where we literally have food pantries for the neighborhood in school buildings, and those, the 57 of those across our counties are closed as the school doors locked and the schools closed. The third channel is backsacks of food to feed children over the weekend who might not otherwise have food between school closing on Friday and school opening on Monday. And those backsack sites, all 243 of those, are now closed as the schools are closed. And then the fourth channel is meant to be a temporary solution, but in some places we've been doing them a long time, and that's mobile pantries, where Gleaners trucks, refrigerated trucks, will go out and distribute food in a partner 8-location parking lot, and we can do hundreds of families that way. So 2 of the 4 channels are closed, the 2 School Connect channels, and the remaining channels, and admittedly the brick-and-mortar neighborhood pantries is the highest share, more than the other 3 combined, but of the brick-and-mortar pantries and the mobile food pantries, most of those locations are dramatically up from what they were pre-COVID. The most dramatic increase is our own on-site pantry at Gleaners, which has been seeing 4 and 5 times as many households as normal come through. Some of the mobile pantries are running 1.5. I didn't use the word only, but you could say they're only 1.5 to times to double what they were before the pandemic. But of the sites that are open, they're all higher numbers of families being served, but you need to offset that with sites that are closed and are obviously distributing zero. If you total all that, we're running right at double our normal distribution.
Have there been a lot of donations coming in to help support your work and the families that need the support, extra support right now?
Thankfully, the mix of donors that support Gleaners, and that mix includes formal foundations and philanthropic organizations to corporate partners to the full range of individual donors. And we've seen some pullback in some cases, but in total, all categories of donors have increased their support to Gleaners during this period. And frankly, we couldn't have done it without them, because so many, it's not just that we need more funds to support more families in need. Every element of our operating expenses or our cost structure has gone up. The most dramatic is the increase in food. We, pre-COVID, retail store surplus, food and non-food, that was donated by all the major retailers has dramatically dropped, and in some individual store cases stopped. And the stores are focused on keeping up with what is admittedly just chaos in stores, and they're doing their best to serve their customers, and there isn't necessarily surplus available to donate to Gleaners or other charities. And you combine that with the fact that their staff is so busy, even if they had surplus food to donate to us right now, they might not have the time and attention to focus on the donation process. So we have temporarily lost our largest single source of food, which means then we've gone from less than 10% of our total food being outright purchased to over 40% of our food that we're distributing now being outright purchased. And combine that with the very generous donations that we've historically enjoyed from companies like Kraft and General Mills and Nabisco and so on, as they're struggling to keep their retail store customers supplied. Food banks are understandably lower on the priority list, perhaps, to deliver, and we're not getting discounted prices. We're paying full market price, if not a premium, just to get food orders delivered to Gleaners when we have funds to spend. So the short answer is, when we have money to go shop with, we're not getting as much for those dollars. So that just aggravates it. We need even more donated dollars to pay a higher price. So it's the economics of it are a bit uncomfortable. The net of that is, the first week or so of the pandemic, we spent about $250,000 extra on food and related costs. The last couple of weeks, it's leveled off at $600,000 to $680,000 a week, above and beyond our normal budget, and the bulk of that is food costs.
And as people are starting to go back to work and they're having that money start coming back in their households, where they are able to purchase their own food, and they're not going to be as inclined to go to Gleaners because they're able to purchase their own food. And if they have the extra money, or they're able to donate, can people still donate food to you guys, or is it better just to send the money right now?
Really, we need the money to shop with. Despite what I said about food being more expensive, it is still far cheaper if you figure the delivered cost of food to families in need and all of the costs of receiving and sorting and processing and moving multiple times donated food. It's still cheaper for us to go and buy it by the truckload.
How can someone donate to Gleaners monetarily right now?
Gleaners.org/donate. And there are multiple options once you get to that portion of our webpage. And in fact, I've noticed some companies and teams and others are taking advantage of our virtual food drive, where you can identify and set up your own virtual food drive, and you can have some sense on there of what the money will go for, how much $5 will do, $10 will do, and so on, and it will keep track of what your particular drive is accumulating in donations. So for those that have a bit of a competitive team nature to them, they can do their own drive.
If someone finds that they're in need of food and supplies, how can they find out where to go to a Gleaner site?
So we have some information on our own Gleaners.org website, but honestly, if you're in central Indiana, I would go to the Community Compass app, and that app will work on Apple or Android smartphones. It will also work on text-only phones, that Community Compass app. And that will not only get you information on where food pantries are, the hours they're open, and the information on those pantries, but it also, for those households where it applies, tell you about SNAP eligibility, WIC eligibility. There's some other information on there. So the Community Compass app is certainly very helpful. And 211 statewide is equipped with some information, as well as some other call centers.
And as life starts to go back to the new normal after people are starting to go to work, what's the concern from Gleaners for some of the marginalized communities?
My largest concern is that those who have the resources to help, and I don't mean that literally just in terms of financial donors, but there are a variety of ways people are helping their neighbors in need, that they will be distracted by a sense that medically we're through it and we're past the pandemic, and maybe not be fully aware that the economic recovery timeline is entirely different from that medical recovery timeline. You know, we may get to a period where we have no positive cases and the hospitals are back to normal, or whatever their new normal is. And in the meantime, we may have just as many people in our food lines as we did at the height of the pandemic. The recovery for families who lost paychecks, and in some cases, every wage earner in a household may have lost a paycheck. It will take an extended period of time for things to get back to normal economically for a lot of families. And my hope is that the community will stay with them and be just as supportive through the entire economic recovery period, not just the medical recovery period. One of the most dramatic changes that has happened in response to this pandemic is the Gleaners Workforce historically has been 40% of the work done by volunteers and about 60% done through staff. At the same time, we doubled the workload or more at Gleaners to keep up with the additional demand. We had periods of employees off work for one valid reason or another, as high as 20% of the employees, and yet the work had doubled. We also, in steps, reduced the number of volunteers at the Gleaners premises to zero. And we're an organization that historically has had more than 20,000 volunteers a year, to zero. So two things we did, thank goodness, Rachel Lane and at the Family Social Services Administration and the state task force, the governor's task force has been responding to this, arranged for 50 National Guard troops to be assigned to Gleaners and other hunger relief organizations across the state. We absolutely could not have kept up and gotten this work done with no volunteers and less than 100% staffing most weeks without those National Guard troops. In addition, we made a decision fairly early on with the help of one of our board members to pick up the payroll of about 50 employees who had been working at the convention center, and as that work stopped, were at risk of losing their paychecks. For us, that meant possibly being at risk of being in a food line and being food insecure as families. So we have been covering their payroll, and they have been packing the family meal boxes, 30,000 family meal boxes a week that we're distributing through several dozen nonprofit organizations, including IPS buses and without IPS drivers. These boxes are packed by temporary workers whose payroll we picked up, so they keep getting a paycheck and they don't end up in the line. And just as I said, we couldn't have done it without the National Guard. We couldn't have done it without the hardworking employees of reliable staffing either.
For the second part of the show, Kären Haley, Executive Director of the Indianapolis Cultural Trail, gives us details about what you can do on the trail during the stay-at-home order and the new planned expansion. So, Kären, can you tell me a little bit about the Cultural Trail and all of the, how far it reaches?
Sure. The Indianapolis Cultural Trail, a legacy of Gene and Marilyn Glick, is an 8-mile linear park in downtown Indianapolis. It connects all of the downtown cultural districts and cultural institutions, and also serves as the hub for the Central Indiana Greenway system. And that's really important right now because we know so many people are outside and riding bikes and walking and running. And so it's just a great way to use as a connector around the city and to get out and explore, things outside of downtown. Use the trail to connect really anywhere you want to go.
And with the trail, there's a bunch of attractions, there's a bunch of public art all along the trail. Where can people find where all the art is?
So you can go to our website, indyculturaltrail.org, or just get out and explore the trail. Some of the art is a lot easier to find. Some of the art is more subtle. There's one particular installation that is actually scent art. It's in the area behind Chatham Tap, behind Mesh, off of Massachusetts Avenue. And then some of the pieces of art are the most iconic in the city, like Anne Dancing by Julian Opie. So that, to me, is one of the best things to do on the Cultural Trail, is to explore and see what you find. There's always going to be something new. You're going to find art that's engaging and beautiful. And right now, being spring, the gardens just look amazing. They are full of color and good, spring smells, and it just makes a beautiful place in downtown. And it's just a true asset to our city that a lot of people are, safely taking advantage of right now.
And touching on the safely taking advantage of, the trail is still open during the stay-at-home order, correct?
It is, yes. We work very closely with the city of Indianapolis. The Cultural Trail is a public-private partnership, and it's public right-of-way, and so it is open, and we are using all of our communication channels to remind people to stay physically distant, to be aware, when you're on the trail, to stay as far apart from people as you can. Again, just following CDC guidelines, using hand sanitizer, washing your hands, wearing masks. But that's all things that we are communicating, on our communication channels, primarily social media, and we're really just following the guidelines as provided by, the experts.
And with the Cultural Trail, I know you can walk on it and you can run on it. You don't allow motorized vehicles on it, correct?
Correct. No motorized vehicles. There are a lot of people riding bikes out right now. And we operate the Pantries bike share program. So there are 50 stations total, all throughout central Indianapolis, ranging as far north as Broad Ripple and the Monon, over to Riverside Park, and then down to Garfield Park. And then there's 29 of those stations downtown on the Cultural Trail. So if you don't have a bike, or maybe you just want to explore and not worry about what you're going to do with your bike, using the bike share program in partnership with the Cultural Trail to get around the trail, to explore, get exercise, and then also use it to go to kind of some of the off-the-beaten-path places, just to get outside of downtown, do something different than you would normally do, and explore all of the great greenways and trail systems that our city has to offer. And you can do that via the Cultural Trail and on a Pacers bike share bike.
And I was looking on the website, and there also are adaptive bikes, too.
There are. We do have adaptive bikes. That program is actually on hold until the stay-at-home order is lifted, because that is just following the city's guidelines right at this point for a few more days. That program we've had to unfortunately push pause just because of the close physical distance that you have to have when you're using an adaptive bike for our staff to fit you on that bike. It's a very, kind of personal experience. We want to make sure that the adaptive bikes are fitting the person correctly who's using them, because we don't want to cause any injury. And so that program is hopefully will open right back up after the stay-at-home order is lifted on May 15th. Mm-hmm. We're closely following the guidelines before we open that program. The bike share, it's out. You use it on your own. There's no contact with a person. We do sanitize the bikes before they go back out into the field. And, again, encourage people to use hand sanitizer, just like the CDC is recommending. But that is you can actually access bike share bikes with no contact. We have a mobile app. Download the B-Cycle app on your mobile device, and you can check out a bike without even touching anything except for that bike. So it's a little bit different, but we are so excited to, kind of reopen our adaptive bike program when we are allowed to do that safely.
Excellent. And people can stay up to date when the adaptive bikes are available by visiting your social media and your website. Where are you active on social media?
We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and that those handles are both for the Indianapolis Cultural Trail at Indy Cultural Trail, at IN Cultural Trail, and then at Pacers Bike Share, just depending on what that platform is. So many people are inside right now. We have taken a stab, like so many organizations, at some virtual programming for people to learn more about the Cultural Trail and our programs. So every Thursday at noon, we're having our horticulturalists on Instagram Live talk about the gardens on the trail. You can ask your own garden questions. So kind of a behind-the-scenes look, but also a opportunity for you to decide or ask questions. When should I plant this? What's the difference between this plant and this plant? So that's on Thursdays on Instagram, via Instagram Live at noon. And then again on Wednesdays, we do a similar behind-the-scenes look at the Pacers Bike Share program and talk to the operations staff about how our bike share program operates. And that is on Wednesdays at noon on Instagram Live. So if you're sitting at home and looking for some additional information, something to do, learn about the trail and learn about Pacers Bike Share.
And people can look on the website and check the maps. So as the state starts to reopen and the city starts to reopen and we're able to use different programs, we can stay up to date and plan our routes. So you can check it out now and later.
Yeah, you can definitely check it out now. I mean, it has been, I think, truly the Cultural Trail and Bike Share, because it's a public bike share program. I think they're a part of, along with many other, amazing entities that the city has, like our green spaces and our public spaces, are a part of, people's health and wellness right now, both their physical and mental health. And that will continue. And we're just so lucky that we have these amenities and these investments that have been made over the years that people are truly being able to take advantage of right now. And I just think it's great seeing people take that opportunity and, be out, be physically active on their bikes, walking, and again on the Cultural Trail, but really using the trail as a springboard to explore other areas, outside of downtown that the trail connects to. We've got a great greenway system, and you can get to many, many of the greenways via the Cultural Trail from downtown. So, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do this time of year. So, yes, available and open for people to use right now. And then again, looking forward to reopening our adaptive bike program, when safe to do so.
And coming up, you do have some expansions planned. Can you talk a little bit about the expansions?
We do. Yes. So that is still happening. That is not being impacted by this pandemic right now. We are expanding the Cultural Trail in two areas. The first is along South Street. So the Cultural Trail already intersects with South Street in two places. One's over by the Convention Center and Lucas Oil Stadium on Capitol, and then over on the east side by Eli Lilly's corporate headquarters and Virginia Avenue, where the trail turns to go towards Fountain Square. It's a little bit more than a half mile, and so we will be connecting that with an expansion of the Cultural Trail, really providing a lot better connection for the near south side. There's some great businesses down there, local businesses, great neighborhoods, and really there's a beautiful connection will just improve the quality of life along the South Street corridor that's really very just kind of gray right now. So we're excited to do that. The other one is better connecting the Indiana Avenue Cultural District. So moving towards the northwest side of downtown, we will connect to the front door of the Madam Walker Legacy Center, which we're very excited to do and partner with that amazing institution to, kind of further the cultural richness that has existed on the avenue for so long. And then also connecting north up to the 16 Tech Innovation District along Indiana Avenue and 10th Street. And that will not only connect to 16 Tech, but also better connect the hospitals, the universities, and the research community to the rest of downtown. That kind of 10th Street corridor is a little bit isolated. And so we're excited to bring, the cultural trail there to make it just a much more beautiful place, a much more connected place, so that, the best and the brightest researchers and hospital staff that are doing such an amazing job right now will have a beautiful place where they can walk and bike and, just connect to the rest of Indianapolis. So that will also better connect us to the Riverside Park area, with connecting to the White River Trail up in that section. So again, all about connectivity and quality of life and community improvement and just, adding more to the wonderful community of Indianapolis with these two expansions.
And when can people expect to start seeing the construction and then the opening of those areas?
Good question. So we are currently in design. We will be going out to the public later this summer to ask for their feedback and their thoughts and kind of how we can involve them in the process of this design of these two expansion areas. The construction, if everything moves according to plan, we will be starting construction about a year from now. And construction will probably take about a year. That's all, weather dependent, and we have winters here, so we'll hope that we have no snow and no freezing weather while we're under construction. But we're about 2 years out from people being able to ride their bikes and push their strollers and roll their wheelchairs on the cultural trail in these two places. But I'm excited that that's continuing and really looking forward to getting the public input and working with all the stakeholders as those two segments start to come to life.
Excellent. And people can stay up to date by checking out your social media and your website.
Our website, right. We have a really special place on our website for expansion. So it's just indyculturaltrail.org/expansion. And that'll take you right there just to all the expansion information. There's some great graphics and maps, some renderings of what it will look like. And we're really excited. I mean, the Cultural Trail has been around for, most people think it's been here forever, but we really celebrated the opening back in 2013. And so right around the 10-year anniversary of that celebration, we'll hopefully be celebrating the 1-year anniversary of our expansion. So just excited to see it grow and the community continuing to support everything that the Cultural Trail does.
Excellent. And just as a reminder, the Cultural Trail is open, and you can check it out with the Pacers Bike Share.
You can. Make sure you're aware of how close you are to people and wash your hands, just like your mom told you.
Thank you for joining me this week. If you want to reach out or have a topic you'd like me to cover, you can email me at emetheny, that's EMETHENY, at radio-1.com. Thank you and have a great week.
Radio Now 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.